Hello my fellow moviegoers, Chris is back here in the movie chair, and after a very busy Christmas break, I finally got around to go see Star Wars: The Last Jedi in movie theaters. Now I gotta tell you something, trying to avoid Last Jedi spoilers on the internet is extremely hard to do, but I managed to do it. I went in there to be surprised, though I do have to say that I did hear some complaints from people about criticisms that they had about the movie and how they didn't like it. I saw the Rotten Tomato stuff and everything, and I was a little worried going into this based on that, but I kept my mind open, and here is what I thought about the movie. But before I go into my review, I just want to go ahead and remind you guys that if you enjoyed this video, I would like for you to give it a like, and also please subscribe to the channel. It's free and it's easy, and it's your support that will help make this channel a big success one day. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and start talking about the movie, shall we? Also, before we go into the review, I just want to say that this review is going to be very spoiler heavy because I'm going to go into a lot of detail about the story and also talk about some of the criticism I've heard about the story. So if you're somebody who has not gone to see this movie yet and you want to go in there surprised, I would advise you watch this video after you've seen the movie. So okay, let's go ahead and talk about the film. So we know what the story is pretty much, right? This movie takes place right after The Force Awakens, like right at the very end of The Force Awakens. This one like picks up at that point. A very first thing for a Star Wars film, because you know usually there's like 3-5 years between, even like 10 years in regards to the Clone Wars between Star Wars films, so that's another first for this movie. Now we know the Resistance is on the run from the First Order. The First Order has gotten the upper hand on them now after what happened in The Force Awakens. Rey has gone to find Luke Skywalker because she wants to find out what is this feeling that is like bubbling up inside of her with the Force, and she needs a master to train her. Plus she wants to bring Luke Skywalker back to the Resistance because she feels only with Luke Skywalker can the Resistance have an upper hand against the First Order based on what he's done in the past. Luke Skywalker wants no part of it because he feels that the Jedi is just like this legendary kind of like deity who has like this grand like above everybody else personality, and he doesn't feel that the Jedi should be around anymore in that regard. And he also feels that he has failed Ben Solo, now Kylo Ren, because Ben Solo fell to the dark side. So I mean, one thing you're going to notice when you go to see this movie is the fact that Luke Skywalker, he is no longer that starry-eyed, kind of like dream-wandering farm boy that we knew in A New Hope, and also kind of like in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, because he has a very strong kind of like belief in the Jedi way. He feels that the Jedi can bring order and balance back to the galaxy if he can actually become a Jedi. So Luke Skywalker no longer has these beliefs of the Jedi can maintain order in the galaxy. He feels pretty much the only way there can be balance in the galaxy is if the Jedi is just completely gone, which is why he's on that island. Since he is the last Jedi, he just goes there where nobody can find him, shuts himself off completely from the Force, and he's just there to die. Whereas you can say the Sith is still around with Snoke and Kylo Ren, even though Snoke really isn't a Sith Lord in that sense. But the Sith is kind of like weak at this point, so it's kind of like Luke believes the only way there can be balance in the galaxy is if the Jedi and the Sith are just no more. That's the only way there can be balance in the Force. Now I know a lot of people weren't a fan of that because Luke Skywalker was like the shine of hope and positivity in the other films, and now it can be kind of strange to hear him talk more negative and more cynical about this kind of stuff. But bear in mind what has happened to him. He has had like nothing but bad luck happen to him. And he never took on an apprentice. Then when he finally saw how strong Ben could be, he did take him on as apprentice and tried to build up the Jedi Academy. Ben totally burned that to the ground and joined the dark side. So it's kind of like Luke feels like he cannot do it anymore. And I know some people may not like that because in the books Luke did establish the Jedi Academy, and he did actually train more Jedi, and the Jedi were like on the rise because, in those storylines, Leia and Han, they had 2 sons and a daughter who were very Force sensitive, who were becoming Jedis, that kind of thing. And Luke had a son who was becoming a Jedi, who was actually the apprentice for one of Han and Leia's sons, Jace. So, I mean, seeing him like this, it's a shock for some people, and I know it can be a little troublesome for some people in that regard because they want to see Luke as that beacon of hope. But it's actually more surprising and like more of, I don't know what's going to happen with Luke in this story because of the way they did write his character, because you just never seen Luke Skywalker behave this way before, which in a way is a little bit refreshing in my mind, seeing him actually do this and not knowing what his mind is actually thinking of at that point. Now, like I said, seeing Luke's character go through this offers a pretty big twist for the story. And this movie actually does that a lot in this film. For instance, I mean, the story in this movie, you think it's going to go one way, and then it completely goes off in a totally opposite direction of what you think is going to happen. A perfect example of this is when Finn and Rose are trying to figure out a way to get onto that Star Killer ship in order to knock down the hyperspace tracker device so that the Resistance can get away. That thing is filled with so many moments where you feel like you know what's going to happen. You felt that Finn and Rose were going to be a success on there. They're going to get on there and they're going to knock it out. And like it just kept on going, no, it's not going to go this way. We're going to go this way. They fail. They get held captive. The Resistance is having to escape. And so many different points in that regard of not knowing if the Resistance is going to make it out of there. How many people are they going to lose in that regard? And in regards to when the Resistance is trying to escape from all that, Admiral Holdo, played by Laura Dern, really thought it was getting to the point where like maybe she was a spy and that she was trying to sabotage the Resistance escape and everything that was happening leading up to that point and the way Poe was handling it. But no, it turns out she's actually a hero and actually buys the Resistance some time to get down to that planet by sacrificing herself in that ship. So I mean, all that kind of stuff, just things like that just really made this movie have a lot of plot twists and turns in it. Now this movie does go into a little bit more of the character development as well for the characters in this thing. For instance, like with Luke Skywalker, you see him go from like this cranky, negative old man at the beginning, and with the help of Rey, Chewbacca, R2-D2, and a special guest appearance from Jedi Master Yoda, he actually starts to become like more, I don't want to say positive, but he does start to have a glimmer of hope in him and understands that kind of like he has to send a message that he's still out there and that he's a symbol for the Resistance, and that if they were to see him, it would spark and ignite a sense of hope in everybody that the First Order can be beaten. So his character did that. With Rey, you see her start to become a little bit more in tune with her Force powers. She's still very, very green when it comes to that, because she doesn't spend that much time with Luke on his island. So it's like, you know, she develops a little more. She's kind of like almost in the same place that Luke was at the end of A New Hope, in a way, after he spent that time with Obi-Wan. That's just my opinion on that. We see Kylo Ren, you know, and this is one thing with Kylo Ren. Snoke starts talking about how like he acts like a child in this thing, and that's what a lot of people criticized him about in The Force Awakens, the way he threw tantrums and stuff. And so Snoke tells him that, and you see how Snoke is able to manipulate his thoughts and everything to try to get him to convey a sense of confliction to Rey during this movie. And then at the end of the film, we see Kylo Ren do something that has never been done in a Star Wars movie before, which is having a Sith apprentice take out his master to then become the master. I've read it in the books and I've seen it in that format, but we've never seen it actually in a movie. We saw Darth Vader take out Palpatine, but then Darth Vader kind of like repented himself and he was no longer a Sith. He died as a Jedi Knight. So this was an interesting twist in that regard in Kylo Ren's character, because he becomes kind of like the Supreme Lord, Supreme Chancellor, whatever you want to call it. And so seeing him develop that way was kind of like an interesting step for his character. He still like uses his emotions too much to delve power from the dark side, and that's, you know, kind of like his main key, and you start seeing that a little bit more with him too. And the new character, Rose, you get to understand why she does not like the First Order as well. You delve into her story and her sister's story about being young kids on a mining planet, and how the First Order, you know, just pretty much like ravished their land and everything like that to try to get minerals to build ships and everything, and the buyers and the people who sold ships to the First Order and everything like that. So her character developed pretty good in that sense too. The two people I would have liked to have seen more character development for, first of all, was Finn, because like he still just felt like, you know, the stormtrooper who deserted his post from The Force Awakens, and that's still kind of like all we got from him. We don't know any more about like his backstory. What was he before a stormtrooper kind of thing, you know, what was his life? So, and like kind of like Rose talked about him as being a hero because of his actions in The Force Awakens. But that's pretty much it. I think it would be kind of nice to see them delve more into Finn's character a little bit more. That would be awesome. And the kind of like the hacker that they met at the casino, played by Benedict Del Toro, I think it would have been great to see some more of him, because or a little bit more of his character development, because I'm still a little bit uncertain about him, because they said when they went there they had to look for somebody wearing that like Lotus lapel pin, and they found somebody wearing the Lotus lapel pin playing games, but they never got a chance to talk to him because they got dragged away by security. So, and they got put in jail, and that's when they met Totoro's character. So what I'm wondering is like the guy at the table, was he the initial hacker? And then they found this guy in the jail cell and it's like, okay, yeah, we'll just go with him because he seems to know what he's doing. Or is the guy in the cell the guy that they are originally looking for, and he lost that Lotus lapel to the other guy in a game of chance? We don't know. It never really goes into detail about that. That kind of bugged me. I really wish we would have gone more into that, but it is what it is. I guess it's just kind of like an open thing in that regard, just make you feel like Rose and Finn in that situation. I tend to believe that he, in the jail cell, Totoro's character was the guy they were looking for, and he lost the lapel in a game of chance. That's my belief in that regard. Now, somebody else's character who we really didn't go more into, like about his origins or anything like that, was Snoke. He's still this mysterious, superior, powerful being that we kind of like don't know anything about his backstory. People have been, for the past 2 years, theorizing and everything like that about who he is. Is he Darth Plagueis? Is he still Emperor Palpatine? All these, you know, some of them crazy ideas. We still don't know what or who he is. And a lot of people are upset because they feel like we may never know now, because Kylo Ren killed him in the movie. But I just want to say this about his death. We know how powerful he is. They've been talking about how powerful he is for the longest time. We see how beat up he is too. He's probably like maybe several hundreds of years old, and if one theory is correct, he was watching the Galactic Civil War from the original trilogy just off at the sidelines somewhere. So my theory is, I believe we have not seen the last of Snoke, and the reason I say that is because if he has done what Darth Plagueis had did, which is find a way to beat death and actually live longer, we saw how Luke was able to project himself force-wise to create kind of like a new version of himself for Leia and them to see in the movie while he was still on the island. What if Snoke is able to actually use a similar method, and right before he died, he was able to use the Force to project his consciousness and everything from his old body and put it into like a brand new vessel where he can continue to live, and he comes back in episode 9. It's not too far-fetched if you think about it, because we've seen kind of, you know, like I said, we've seen something similar with Luke now when he did that with the Force projection of his body. We'll have to wait and see. I think we're about to see more of Snoke, and we'll learn more about him in the future in regards to that. And speaking of stuff that we haven't really known more about, Rey's parents came into this too, because Rey is still trying to find out who exactly her parents are. And there was one scene where Rey and Kylo Ren are talking, and Kylo Ren just tries to get her to say, you need to admit to what your parents were. And Rey just said they were nobody. And Kylo Ren used that. He played with it by telling her, your parents were nobody. They didn't care for you. If you come with me, you will have me. I will care for you, and we can actually rule the galaxy together as the most powerful couple. Now I gotta say this. I totally not 100% believe what Kylo Ren and them were saying about her parents being nobodies. I think he was taking the idea of her parents, because her parents is a weakness for her. Took that and played it against her by saying that they were nobody, to try to stir up those emotions in her, to try to get her to lean more towards the dark side in order to join him. I still think that the mystery of Rey's parents are out there. I think we will learn more about them as well. I think there is something significant about her parents because of how strongly to the Force that she is connected to. I think her family does have some kind of like lineage in the old Jedi Force ways. Whether her family is part of the, you know, whether they're part of the Jedis or part of the Siths, I don't know, because she's going back and forth between the two. Like, she can't control which way she goes that well. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but I think there's more to see in that, and I think we'll see more when episode 9 comes out in that regard. The saddest part for me in this movie was the death of Luke Skywalker at the end. I'm not ashamed to say I kind of shed a manly man tear down my cheek when he passed away, but he passed away at peace, and he just kind of faded away, which I like better than him actually dying in some kind of gruesome, you know, fighting way like what happened with Obi-Wan or any more, or like with Qui-Gon Jinn. He passed at peace, and I appreciate that they did it like that. But bear in mind, this will not be the last that we've seen of Luke Skywalker in these movies. I do think that he's going to be back in episode 9 as a Force ghost, And I think he's going to be coming back to visit Rey a lot. Because if you look at it with Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi was more helpful to Luke Skywalker when he became a Force Ghost. And the same with, kind of like with Yoda, when we saw Yoda in this past one as a Force Ghost. So I think Luke Skywalker is going to be more beneficial to Rey as a Force Ghost because he can come to her more often. She doesn't have to stay there on that island and train all the time. So Luke Skywalker will be back as a Force Ghost, and that's fine. Because like what Obi-Wan said to Darth Vader, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Luke Skywalker here, and we saw him in this movie, he was already powerful. He's now become even more powerful since he's become one with the Force now. So he's going to be very, very helpful to Rey in helping her achieve her goal of becoming a Jedi Knight. Now let's talk about something that's got people so fired up about this film, and that are the little porgs in this movie. Yes, the cute little creatures that live on the island with Luke Skywalker. So many people have been criticizing these, saying that this is the most sickly cute thing that they saw since Jar Jar Binks, and that they said they would actually consider having Jar Jar Binks more than these things because at least he blew stuff up. Well, I'll just go ahead and say this. If you're going into this thing expecting the porgs to be like Jar Jar Binks, it's not going to happen, because the porgs in this movie have maybe a grand total of 5 minutes screen time. They don't do anything. They're just kind of like there to offer up a little bit of a oh ha ha moment, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. No big deal that they're in this thing. And I think kind of like the merchandising and the advertising played up their appearance in this thing more than what you thought it was going to be. They're just kind of like a background kind of addition to the film, and that's it. That's all they are. So don't go into this thing thinking it's going to be like, the Last Jedi with the porgs, because it's not going to happen that way. So, okay, after seeing this movie for myself, I gotta say that a lot of the negative responses that I had been seeing online from what I saw were a little bit unnecessary. They were a little bit exaggerated in my mind. I feel like some people went into this movie with kind of already a negative attitude in place in their mind. Because, I mean, people went into The Force Awakens and they said that it was too much like the old Star Wars films. They borrowed too much from that. It wasn't original, and they got upset over that. Here comes The Last Jedi, something that's more original and did things that other Star Wars movies had never done before. And it still gets criticized, saying that it's not like the Jedi, it's not like the Star Wars movies now. It's like just like a generic sci-fi film and things like that. It still feels like a Star Wars film, but it did things that made you guess what was going to happen next. It didn't follow maybe the same formula that past Star Wars movies had done, but that's a good thing. You want it to change, you want it to evolve. That's how it keeps your attention, and it did this. I think this movie kept my attention more than maybe The Force Awakens, because since The Force Awakens did borrow so much from the original trilogy, I was able to go ahead and predetermine a lot of what was going to happen in that movie. Last Jedi, I wasn't able to do that, and I loved the fact that I wasn't able to do that. So I'm impressed with what Rian Johnson did in this film. I feel like it was a very strong entry in the Star Wars series now. I was very impressed with it. I look forward to seeing it again one day, whether it's in theaters or when it comes out on DVD. I'll have to decide that later. But I think it's a very good entry in the Star Wars series. I feel like it was more original than The Force Awakens. Was it better than Rogue One? I don't know yet. I would have to, kind of like watch them all around at the same time and figure out, because for me, Rogue One and this new series is like my favorite one, because that one was like really original and like had a lot of emotion and things like that in it as well. So I was very impressed with that. But I would highly recommend going to see this movie in the movie theater. You'll have a great time. When I went to go see it, it was really a packed house, even though it's been 2 weeks since the movie came out. And at the end of the movie, like almost everybody in the movie theater was giving it a round of applause and approval. So that's, everybody at the movie theater seemed to have a good time and enjoyed it too. And as did myself. But I would like to know what you guys thought of that movie as well. Did you enjoy it? Are you one of the people who did not like it and, had some criticisms about it? If you did, what were your criticisms? Please let me know down in the comment section below, because that is what it is there for. And also, don't forget, if you enjoyed my video, please remember to give it a like. And also, please subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date with all the upcoming videos that I'll send your way in the future. Well, alright my friends, that is all the time we have for today. I'll be seeing you guys later, and I will save you a movie chair for the next video.